What monthly audits are essential for care providers to maintain regulatory compliance and high standards of care?
Okay, so there's no concise answer to this, because it will vary service provider to service provider. It all depends on what service you're providing, what risks you're encountering, and also, how that care service is provided to the clients. So don't get me wrong, I mean, there will be things such as bed rail audits, care plan audits, care record audits, kitchen audits, MAR charts, fire alarms, potentially if it's more residential as an example, but it will vary care provider to care provider. I think arguably the more important question here, and this is also something that I run into with the majority of care providers that I speak with, and I think I'm starting to understand why this tends to be the case. And so what I tend to see is that I've worked with care providers that have been inspected and they're deemed as outstanding. We've had a look at their records, and the client-facing documentation is of a high standard, as expected of an outstanding care provider. However, the CQC and the health and safety executive are very, very focused on accountability. They want to effectively lift up the bonnet of the organisation. From a CQC or an Ofsted perspective, they're far more focused on the client side of things. And so they want to see who did what and when. And with those care providers that I ended up working with that were of an outstanding nature, what was quite shocking to me was when I actually looked at the legal requirements of what's required of an employer, their client-facing documentation was next to perfect. But for their staff, there was next to nothing in place. And so I think everyone should certainly look to take notes here. What's required of an employer is detailed in the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974 to do everything reasonably practicable to ensure the health, safety and well-being of our staff, as well as anyone directly affected by our undertakings. And naturally, off that definition in of itself, the CQC governed the latter part of that, anyone directly affected by our undertakings, specifically service users and service users' families. Whereas, again, that too extends for anyone that conducts or carries out work for the business. Even if you were to have a residential setting and you had a cleaner come in, they're self-employed, they have no employment relationship with the organisation, they're not on our payroll, well then, again, we still have a duty of care to them. What I would be looking for is what's actually in place for our staff here. So again, just having a health and safety policy is wholly insufficient. You need far more controls within this. You should develop policies and procedures. Typically, I would recommend communicating them in a separate employee health and safety handbook. You are then legally required, not just ethically or morally, to train your staff and to risk assess based on all elements of risk, based on what it is you do and your service provision and what an employee may encounter. I think lone working and occupational driving is probably the biggest areas that I see next to no paperwork on. Again, let's just make sure that something exists in writing. If you do your fire alarm tests every Tuesday, maybe get a checklist to make sure that we can evidence, should questions be asked, who did what and when. So again, health and safety is I find slightly more underplayed with respect to how vast it is, and it can be extremely costly. The fines and penalties for health and safety breaches or prosecutions under criminal, whether that be criminal or civilly, are based on an organisation's turnover, not profit. So it can be extremely costly, and I've seen the majority of them outweigh any awards that you will ever find in an employment tribunal. Extremely costly complaints.